All right. Make sure your microphones are on. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming this evening. Call the roll.
Trustee Spurling.
Here.
Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
All right, we do have a quorum this evening. We'll go ahead and, actually, you know what, if we could, before we move on to the swearing in, we just wanted to get a photo of the newly electeds beforehand, just so the photographer can leave. So if Teresa, Steve, and Denny and I wanted to walk out there, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll move on with that.
A photo bomb.
With that, I'll invite up the, let's see here, Judge Robert Pilmer to do the swearing in, and of course invite Steve's family to come down. Yeah.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Me? Okay.
can do that. All right. I would just like to thank the judge for coming, even though he's taken off. So move on. Item B, we have public comment. This is the 2-minute opportunity, and I usually pause here and say that anybody that was here for the swearing in that needs to take off and, put Morgan to bed, you're more than welcome to do that. We won't be offended.
Wow, 5 people to put Morgan to bed.
That's awesome. There's 4.
Absolutely.
It's 4 for Morgan or 1 for Morgan and 4 for Steve. So, all right, I'll move on. Public participation or the public comment. 2-minute opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address the board this evening. Now would be the time, unless you're on the agenda elsewhere. All right, moving on. Item C, we have Fire Chief Tom Myers regarding the TIF rebate process. Chief?
Good evening, members of the Village Board. I'll keep this short again this month, or this meeting. My name's Tom Myers. I'm the Chief of the Montgomery and Countryside Fire Protection District. Just a couple quick things. I know that there was a lot of discussion at the last board meeting about the TIF rebate. I'm hoping that all of the Village Board members got the data that they were looking for to finalize some of the decision-making of this TIF rebate. I know it's on the agenda tonight for separate action, and I read through the resolution. I also read through the documented information that staff had provided in your packet. I didn't see anything in there about Aurora Township. I know that Trustee Lee had a concern or had a question about data in Aurora Township as far as the property classes. So I did bring some extra copies of that. If we could just pass those around. That is the information that I did get from the assessor's office in regards to the Aurora Township assessed values. There's a couple paragraphs, I think, as I looked over the resolution that was presented at the last meeting to the resolution that was in your packet tonight, only about 8 or 10 words changed in that resolution. The fire district still has concerns over a couple paragraphs in the resolution that conflict with the new, as the way I understand it to be, the new way that we're going to process this TIF. I know Trustee Mirzak and I know Trustee Sperling asked for the how-tos in the ordinance or in the resolution. I didn't see any more how-tos in the resolution, so I'm not sure exactly if they met your needs in the comments or not. But I will point out a couple things. There's a paragraph on the second page down at the bottom that still has the language that the fire district's concerned about, where it says the determination of the village staff shall be final in determining the amounts due. And in parentheses, it says subject only to review of the village board. And the way I understand this is they're going to present to you the what they think should be removed from the TIF rebate. And then the village board is going to have the final say or the final vote on this. So I think that paragraph is a little conflicting as to the paragraph above where it talks about the new process of the TIF rebate. As we read on to the top of the next page, there's like a 30-day, unless a board member objects to the report within 30 days of the presentation in writing, the village staff shall issue the said rebates. I don't think that whole paragraph at the top of the next page, as it continues on, even applies anymore, because the village board is going to have a presentation by staff, and the village board is going to make the determination whether or not it's in the TIF rebate or the funds go to the TIF fund. Our only other issue is number 2. It says any captured assessed taxable valuation tax increment derived from new construction, and that statement is correct, or existing property improved subsequent to January 13, 2014 shall not be rebated. The second part of that after or, where it says existing property improved subsequent to January 13th, that's where the percentage now comes in play. So the first part of that actual number 2 is correct. Any new construction derived from that area is going to be not rebated. However, existing property is going to be rebated at the percentage that's discussed at on the previous page. So that, I think, is some conflicting language. What concerns me is the village board had a lot of concerns, was looking for a lot of data from staff. I'm not sure if you got all that data, but as we try and move through and solve this problem, if there's any information that I can provide to you, I saw that you didn't have the Aurora tax assessor's information, so I'm happy to provide that for you. But I think, Trustee Bond, this is where we talk about why does this keep going meeting after meeting? And I don't know. I hope you're getting all the information that you've asked for. So, again, we thank you for your consideration on finalizing this. We just want to be right with this before we pass it, and I know it's on the items for separate action tonight. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them during later in the meeting. So thank you very much. Those are our concerns. So as of right now, the fire district is not happy with the final document here.
Awesome.
If this is the final document. And what documents and information you've been given, I'm not sure of, but I can only go by what I've gotten in the public. So thank you very much.
All right, Chief. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to, and we will obviously discuss this when it comes up later under items for separate action. So move on to item D, which is a public hearing on the proposal to sell general obligation alternate bonds in the amount of $3.5 million for the purpose of financing improvements to the waterworks system. Director Van Voren, do you have anything to add? I guess I should open the public hearing.
Yes.
Anything from staff additional?
Not at this time, no.
And this is for work that will be done this year?
Yes.
We're looking to do? Okay. Or at least start this year? Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody from the public that is here to speak at the public hearing for the bonds? All right. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to the next item. Item E is a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week. The proclamation is in your packet. Municipal Clerks Week is May 7th through May 13th. That's this week. And I will forego reading the entire thing because there's 4 of them on the agenda. If there's I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines.
Thank you. The next item, F, is a proclamation for Economic Development Week, which is also this week, May 8th through 13th. Economic Development Week in the Village of Montgomery. Again, if there's a motion for approval.
So moved?
Second.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Thank you. Item G is a proclamation for Public Works Week, which is not this week. It is May 21st through the 27th, 2017, National Public Works Week in Montgomery.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
All right, and the last one, item H, is proclamation for Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day. Police Week is May 14th through the 20th, 2017, and Peace Officers Memorial Day is this coming Monday, May 15th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded?
Denny?
Any. Okay. Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Thank you. And I will say, I certainly don't want to short-circuit the process by approving those without reading them in full. I assure you that I have. But I just want to call out the great work that our municipal clerks do, economic development, public works, all of our public works employees, and then also our police So certainly appreciate the work that you guys do in various roles for the Village of Montgomery and for the community and the nation. So thank you.
I thought Todd might want to read his, but I see he didn't want to.
I was going to offer to let him do that, but. All right, I'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll read the items, entertain a motion for approval. Minutes of the Village Board meeting of April 24th. The building report for April of 2017. Accounts payable for FY 2017 through May 4th. Accounts payable for FY 2018 through May 4th. Cancellation of the May 16th Committee of the Whole meeting. Item F is a temporary liquor license and waiver of fee request from the Dixon Merced Farm Partners. I think we've talked about that one previously. Item G is Ordinance 1769, revising the village code with regard to Historic Preservation Commission. This is a waiver of first and passage on the second reading. And that enables these next two items. H.
Sorry.
Okay. Item H, which is the appointment of Paula, Debbie, how do you say her last name? Nice. Michaelik at 22 Chatham Place to the Historic Preservation Commission for the term through May 31st, 2021. And item I, appointment of Linda Komiak of 1861 Garfield in Aurora to the Historic Preservation for a term through May 31st of 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
No.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines.
All right, and that carries 5-1. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, items for separate action. We have a recommendation of the Plan Commission of PC 2017-008, special use for a drive-through at Earth Mover Credit Union located on Baseline Road. And then the next one, we have Ordinance 1770. So we'll discuss both of these at the same time. We'll turn it over to our senior planner, Jared Chipman.
Thank you very much, President Brawley. Before you this evening is a request for a special use for a drive-through. That request is located at the Earth Mover Credit Union at 2195 Baseline Road. Basically what the petitioner is requesting is to construct a second building on that parcel. The second building would be a branch, more like a credit union branch building where customer service would be performed. And the primary building that is currently on the property would be more of a headquarters operation rather than having both headquarters and branch functions within the one building. The current location has an existing drive-through. That drive-through did not previously have a special use, and the relocation of the drive-through is what prompted the necessity for the special use, rather than a simple site plan. As the current building is not operating, the petitioner is requesting 3 to 4 drive-through lanes at this new facility. They have yet to come to a final determination, and staff has looked at both options and do not feel that either one change the access and the circulation or any other items that we may be concerned with. The access will be the same. There are 3 access points on this property currently. The circulation will change, however, as a lot more of the customers will be exiting out the Horseman Trail access points than out on Baseline Road. There are several outstanding items in staff's reports, but they are very minor, and therefore the Plan Commission recommended 6-0 approval of this item with staff's comments and EI and Plan Resource and Fire District's comments yet to be addressed. The petitioner is here this evening if you have any questions for the gentleman, and then I am happy to answer any questions on this project that you may have.
All right. Thanks, Jared. Any questions of staff or the petitioner on this item or the next item, which is first reading?
Can we have the gentleman come down with his little board that he's been carrying for 2 meetings and at least show us some colors? And I'm very happy that you're enlarging, because you're one of the few banks when you drive by, you're always busy.
My
name is Joe Hader from Lamaki Group. I am the designer and lead project manager for the project. We will be doing some renovation to the admin building to help revitalize the old branch, and then we'll be putting the new branch to the west of the new. So you can see we do have proposed rendering and the materials that will be used on the building, on the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are they planning on taking the drive-through of the current structure off?
Yes, so the old drive-through will be removed. We'll patch the roof as needed.
And then is there going to be some traffic flow? My concern is with that opening to Horseman Trail, that becomes quite a cut-through now, as I've encountered the people going the wrong way down through the current ATM location. I'm thinking is there going to put some barricades in or something for the traffic to stop it as a cut-through?
I do not believe that barricades are being proposed. It appears that not many changes are being proposed at that location. I believe that the do not enter signs would remain, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, that problem already exists. What Earth Mover has mentioned to us on multiple occasions that people will go the opposite way down the one-way where the ATM is, which should be alleviated since we're removing that portion of the angled aisle there. There is also traffic that heads east-west, bypassing their current drive-through. They've tried to put large concrete planters adjacent to there, but however, that has not solved the issue either. So,
And I apologize, barricade was the wrong, image to put in there. I didn't mean curb and, planting bed type thing,
Not stop sticks? No?
No.
Okay. When would construction begin?
I think it would be very difficult to alleviate that
Yeah.
situation.
When would construction begin?
We have construction beginning right around either August or September of this year.
And completion? When's substantial completion?
Completion, we're expecting about an eight-month construction time for both projects. We're starting with the new branch first, completing that so that it's a live remodel. So once the new branch is complete, they'll move the branch function over to the new building, and then we'll begin on the second project at the admin building. And 8 months is a conservative window.
I'd like to thank you for the thoughtful landscaping and for using downcast lighting. It'll be a nice addition to that area.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there any other questions from the petitioner, from staff on either of these items? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for item A, which is a recommendation of Plan Commission.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Hines? Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
All right, that carries 6-0. Thank you. Item B is ordinance 1770, which is granting the special use. That's first reading, so we'll take a vote on that at a future meeting. Just to back up a little bit, I learned a little something tonight. The consent agenda, as it turns out, failed because the vote was 5-1, so it needs to be unanimous. So with that, Trustee Bond has requested that we pull, so we're going to go back to consent, to pull items G, H, and I, and we'll have those for separate action. Those will be items H, I, and J for separate action. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is items A through F.
Items G, H, and I will take separate action on tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
There'll be items H, I, and J at the end, separate action.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Which items are you taking from A, B down?
Yes, A through F, we're voting to approve on the consent agenda. So go back to the first page.
Pardon me?
So we're going to vote on those first items again.
Okay, I agree with you.
All right. Any more discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
Yay.
All right. That carries 6-0. Thank you. So we'll jump back into items for separate action. We are at item C, which is an agreement for residential refuse collection with DC Trash for 2017 through 2023. With that, I'll ask Director Hoppenstead for a summary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon direction of the village board from the April 22nd meeting, staff and Mr. Christensen of DC Trash have worked hard to bring a refuse contract before you tonight. Most of the details remain largely the same as previously discussed, except the contract now provides for a senior discount, which was not previously included in the DC proposal.
What did you say about the senior?
We're now including a senior discount in the DC contract, which was not previously included. The details of which, if I'm not sharing too much, the DC Trash proposal anticipates only 10% of their costs to be variable depending on the volumes of refuse. And so therefore, it also assumes that seniors discard less trash than the average resident. So DC is willing to discount that 10%, which would be the equivalent of the waste disposal. The other 90% of their costs are associated with other logistical type items and staff. So they're willing to discount that 10% of the contract cost for up to 300 participating seniors. Currently, there are 182. So depending on how you look at it, it allows for that senior program to grow an additional 65% of what currently we serve, I guess, if I'm explaining that right. Of the 182, we could take another 65% and to meet that 30 or 300 participant maximum. Eligible seniors must be 65 and older. They're required to own and reside in the home covered by the residential refuse contract. If there's any questions for myself or Mr. Christensen tonight, he is here. We are happy to entertain those now. Otherwise, we'll be looking for board approval tonight. As previously mentioned, there's much to be done between now and the commencement of this service contract. So by approving that contract tonight, we can avoid any service disruptions. But I'm happy to take your questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the senior program, will they automatically be getting the smallest trash bin, or are we giving them a choice?
I don't think there's any automatics, and Dan, I'll invite you to take the podium if you'd like to comment differently. But I think what we've allowed for is for residents to specify the size. If they don't respond, I believe you're prepared to default to a certain size. Is that the largest size then?
Yeah, that's correct. We'll default to the largest size unless they request otherwise.
So they certainly have that opportunity, but if they fail to respond, then they would be getting the largest size.
Okay.
Default to the largest size for both recycling and for refuse?
It'd be the large trash can and the medium-size recycling can, just like all the other residences, unless they'd like to have something other than that.
Okay. And if we, I think we recycle 90% of our garbage. Is there any other cost to go to a larger recycling?
No, it's all the same cost. We've left that up to each resident to choose which size container for each waste stream fits their needs best. And we've allowed for a period, I believe it's unlimited in this particular agreement, to exchange those cans throughout the term.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Will seniors be using a 35 then? Instead of any bag content, they're going to be using like a 35, a
There
little
will be
list?
no blue bag program.
Right.
They will be encouraged to use a can or forced to use a can, but again, that 35 would be specified if they choose that. Otherwise, they could potentially end up with a 96 or even a 65. Yeah. I may be off, give or take a gallon or two on those sizes, but you understand the third sizes.
Well, most of them just put a little blue bag. It's no bigger than this. You put it in a 35, but will they be specified smaller? I mean, will they be Will they say senior on it or anything like that, or no?
No, they won't say anything different
Okay.
on them. They're just a smaller size if they so request them. Under this program, it'll also allow for additional waste if necessary from those senior citizens that, and the cost won't increase either. So if they so choose to have a 96-gallon container and put out 8 or 10 bags that particular week, it's still going to be at the senior discount, so much as they qualify for the program.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, because before you didn't want anything to do with the seniors, but that's a smart decision you made.
In defense of DC Trash, I'd just like to say that, this evolved rather quickly, and I personally should be held accountable for not mentioning to Mr. Christensen in those brief and quick discussions the importance of the senior program. So he quickly adopted to that philosophy as soon as I brought him up to speed. So I had to take full accountability for that.
Since we're not having the pickups, and you said you could put out like a chair, or some wood or whatever at the same time, one resident whose boy is trying to have a heart transplant, and so he's got all kinds of medical. They fill up a 96 real easy, and they put it in other cans. That would work out all right then, because those other cans would be like another chair or something like that. So
Absolutely. Actually, they're not limited to the amount of refuse that they can put out. So if you have a party.
we try to get it in the big one, but okay.
Yeah, we ask that residents use the can first if they can. But there are occasions, Memorial Day, 4th of July, or often sometimes where more waste is generated. And as long as it's contained to a bag or a can, it's of no additional cost.
Very good. Thank you.
We did receive some inquiries as well if they would rent a second can at the customer's choosing, and he has agreed to do that for an additional $250, I think it was, per month per can. So if there's a consistent overage, somebody could, if they choose, rent another cart, or they can utilize the cans and bags that they currently have.
She might do that, yeah. Okay.
I'd like to be Scrooge for a moment on that topic. The use of a residence container, those are typically round and typically uncovered and typically poorly made. And I think they're a common source of litter in the neighborhood. So now with a new contract, you don't have to agree with me, but now might be the time to discuss the possibility that everybody should use the wheeled carts that are designed for automation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it definitely can provide a cleaner environment and prevent some wind-blown litter, and also animal intrusion in the can and some of those types of things that do cause that. And that's why, at no additional cost, we're going to provide them to every residence. We're hoping that if it's something, a large family in a particular home, that they'll take advantage of that additional container if it's a reoccurring issue. Or if it's a one-time situation, party or holiday or something of sorts, we'll do our best to pick all that up, and there is language in the contract that provides for that.
I guess to clarify, what I'm suggesting is that maybe everyone should be using the wheeled cart, and picking up the litter or garbage is a problem if they're not using an authorized wheeled cart. And additionally, if that isn't enough, if 96-gallon isn't enough, then another wheeled cart, but not another random device that is subject to tipping over and blowing over.
That would certainly be beneficial for us, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
And then that would benefit your crews as well. They wouldn't be getting out to pick that up. And
Yeah, it definitely reduces exposure for the employees.
This additional trash that you're talking about, if I have a Memorial Day party, I fill my 96, I don't have a second wheeled cart. So it sounds like you're suggesting that I should hold that in my garage until next week. Really, I'm bagging it and putting it out there, whether I put it out there in bags, my old cans. Again, I think most people will be happy to see those go, space-wise. But there's just an alternative for me to be able to get rid of additional trash. So I wouldn't have a second wheeled cart to put it in. I just want to clarify, it sounds like you're suggesting that they'd not be able to put it out unless they have two wheeled carts.
I think it's maybe a matter of consistency.
That's.
Holidays are kind of special, Christmas, for example. But if they're routinely using more than one cart, I think it would be in the village's best interest to see them have another wheeled cart, or at least at a minimum bag that other material so it's not just loose.
If I may, I think I more properly understand your concern now, and I would agree with it. I think it's somewhat of a policy decision, and we would have to determine a mechanism to classify people as consistently over exceeding, which may be problematic in itself. But if there was such a mechanism to determine who consistently over exceeds the 96-gallon cart, then I think as a matter of policy, the board could determine that we require them to rent a second cart for that trash.
It's a very reasonable expense. It's a very high-quality cart. Our wheeled cart has never blown over, and it's withstood quite a few windstorms, but the kind you get at the hardware store blow over all the time.
And I think from the village's standpoint, or from my point of view, my biggest concern in that situation would be the blowing of the trash, correct? So I think there's a certain amount of not self-policing that goes involved with if you're consistently over and you can fit an extra, bin in your garage for $2 a month, then that might be a benefit. But if their trash is blowing around their street, then it would certainly be their responsibility to have that cleaned up. I think the village could go so far as to say, at least make people aware that that program is available so that they can utilize that for the extra can that they have, short of identifying them as heavy users. But, all right.
What you see in Aurora is they both have the recycle can and the waste can, but the recycle can is full, and what they have is like one huge box from these mail order places, and then they stick all this other it's all cardboard, which works out. It doesn't blow. A lot of beer cases in there too, but it just doesn't blow around. But the guy's gonna have to get off the truck and throw it in there. But you see a lot of that because of the mail order. They take the biggest box and stick everything inside it. So they aren't going to rent a thing because they never know when they're going to have it, but it'll work.
I think we could take advantage of the literature that we plan to distribute to each resident. When we deliver the cans, they'll be similar to the bag that you get your newspaper in, and that'll also include some instructions on the program, and we could put any additional information in there that the board sees fit.
Awesome.
That'll be on a doorknob, not on a rock on the driveway. That's a joke.
We actually hang them from the...
Okay, yeah. All right. Will we have cans out here for people who asked already? What color they're going to be and how big they are, because the 35 ain't out here. So we're going to have some of those out here for you.
We'll get you a sample of each one, yep.
Okay. And the $250 for the extra, do we bill that or does he bill that?
I think the way the language is written is that they will bill anything additional. We are billing the
Per house?
the per home per month cost,
Okay.
as we have historically done.
Just so we understand.
And that's how our current contract works, because I do rent the trash bin for $12 a quarter or something. So the one obvious question that I need to ask is, if it's a certain dollar amount, right, for the houses, how is it financially viable to say they can put out one can of trash, one can of recycling, unless they need to put out more, and then you could put out 2 cans, you could put out 3 cans. Like, how is it that you financially can make that work? It just seems...
Law of averages, really. We've done some fairly substantial weight studies by village, and what we see is a fairly consistent number. When you take a broad base, a broad sample size, like a whole town, the averages are fairly easy to compile. There are some things that we keep our eye on when we're out there, excessive things, move in, move out garbage. I believe we have some notes in there in the contract relative to that. Construction debris, some of those types of things. The nice thing is that 96-gallon cart, it'll hold 8 kitchen bags per week. I feel like that's a a substantial amount. If you really wanted to cram it in there, you might be able to get a ninth or maybe even a 10th if the lid was popping. But, we'll keep our eye on it, much like it's to our driver's advantage, certainly, to recognize some of those things and to ensure that if there is an instance that's a continual issue, that we have a card available for that person.
Okay.
We also utilize communication tags. I'm sure that you guys might be familiar with those. Ours are pretty simple. If it's an event that could be embarrassing to the customer, it just simply says, please call office. So I feel like those are a good device when used properly.
Okay. All right. A couple other things, and I talked to Todd on the phone, and I kind of spoke out a little bit about this at the last meeting. One of my concerns, obviously, is you biting off a lot right now, and I know you're obviously aware of this, taking on another community and us at pretty much the exact same time. My questions for Todd, and I think he was relaying those to you, was related to staffing. I guess the overall staffing for your firm, what does it look like inside the Village of Montgomery, and how are we protected? What's our exposure in this? And not that I think that you're going to, but should you be unable to fulfill the requirements of the contract?
Well, the village has required us to put up a performance bond in the amount of $300,000, which should cover the village for a period of almost 4 months if we were unable to perform the service. I think that's in large part the best financial protection that you can get. Our staffing in general, right now we have about 15 or 16 employees, and we're adding about 3 to 4 for this contract. We're going to add an additional customer service rep, much like we did in Sugar Grove, and I'm sure that that's part of what's caused some concern with recent success we've had there as well. And it was also a question in last week's meeting there. I think the biggest thing is being ahead of this, and we're ahead right now. If this were to maybe go on for another month and we were unclear as to what the results may be, we would certainly lose that advantage of being ahead. Right now we have equipment that's going to be delivered in early July. We still have some wiggle room there. If things got pushed back a day or two or even a week, we're still covered. We've also already begun staffing for this contract. That's going to allow for almost an 8-week to 9-week training period, so that folks are ready to go when we do get the contract. And then I think the most important thing is anticipating future turnover. We're not going to hire exactly what we need. We do carry additional swing drivers, as we call them, which are guys that are responsible for covering vacations or call-ins or things of that nature. But in addition to that, we're going to have an additional driver in the event that two became sick or something like that. So that, and then we have additional trucks necessary on standby. I think that's important. It's not always a matter of people as it is equipment. We have a substantial amount of spare equipment, and I think that that's important as well. I'd also like to ease your concerns a bit, not to rehash some things that I brought up last meeting, but I have extensive experience in running large sites, and at one point had 42 municipal contracts, the largest being about 25,000 homes, and I'm very well versed and adaptive in this type of environment.
Awesome. Okay.
I don't want to drill down too deep into this just because it's not my place, but some residents had asked about trash days. Obviously, he will have access to what, like my trash is Mondays. Some residents said, am I going to have to learn a new day now? Is this going to change for me? And I'm thinking that you guys will.
I've shared the current map with him, and I think as we discussed, we both see benefit in trying to adhere to that as best as possible. Short of demanding that every site in that day, I mean, if there's some efficiencies that can be gained by moving a few customers around, then perhaps he may suggest that. But I think we've tentatively agreed to try and leave things largely the same.
Yeah, the way we have it planned right now, I believe that a day change will be will impact less than 1,000 homes, the remainder of which will stay on their current day. And we'll provide a good communication device. Like I said, when we hang that information on the card, it'll also indicate service day.
And that's something that we can help promote as well, the service day when that,
I remember when we did that, I was here when they did it, and all the people, oh, I don't want Thursday, oh, no, even my own neighbors. And now people don't even think about it. Monday's easy because it's after a holiday, and everybody wanted Monday, well, you couldn't do everybody on Monday. So they moved some to Thursday, and now nobody cares. It's just something that nobody likes change, it's just. But I will say, and I've said it before here too, that Aurora or Montgomery and Sugar Grove should be a lot easier to do for your drivers than Aurora, where there's cars parked all over, and those drivers have to get out almost. I mean, they're out more than on, pushing carts between cars, and I don't think you have it here. And I think you probably figure that out, that it's going to be quicker and probably a lot easier.
We did drive around a lot and familiarize ourselves with the area. We also have about 600 homes that we pick up in Boulder Hill. So that also provides for an additional couple of employees, one on trash and one on recycling, that can, once they've finished their routes, be moved very easily. We've also put the areas that border Sugar Grove on the same day as that area in Sugar Grove. This is how we've planned it, so that those drivers on the southeast side of Sugar Grove will be able to be dispatched quickly to Montgomery in the event of heat or cold or, some of those types of things.
So you do 600 houses in Boulder Hill right now?
Yeah, about that. Give or take, I guess.
All right.
Currently, Emma Avenue's on a Monday. We'll I don't want to hear it from my wife.
We'll do our best.
any other questions from the board?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Todd, do you have anything else?
Just to thank Laura, our village attorney, for expediting this and working with Mr. Christensen and staff to get this done.
Awesome. All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agreement with DC Trash.
So moved.
Motion and
Second?
second by trustee Marisak. If any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Hines?
Yeah, I'm disappointed a little bit in that, giving a little bit more to the seniors, but I'll say yeah.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
All right. That carries. Was that 6-0? All right. Move on to item D, and thank you, by the way. Look forward to that partnership with you going forward. Move on to item D. We have award of a contract to Geneva Construction for light road rail approach improvements in the amount of $91,000. I'm amazed to see this on our agenda. I'm sad to see it go. Go ahead, Director Hoppenstead.
Thank you, Mr. President. And to add to that, this is an item that was kind of on the village's radar long before my involvement, so I may have to request some help in answering any questions from Engineer Wallers. But bids were received, as per the Illinois Commerce Commission stipulation agreement number 1640, the Village of Montgomery has facilitated the design and bid process for the grade crossing improvements at Light Road. The expense for land acquisition, engineering, and construction are funded fully by the Grade Crossing Protection Fund. The engineer's estimate for this work was approximately $86,000. We received 3 bids from reputable firms, with the least expensive being from Geneva Construction at $91,000. We're recommending approval of this and award of this bid tonight. If you have any questions, myself or Engineer Wallers would be happy to answer those.
All righty. And did you cover that this is not village funds for this project?
Correct. It's through the Grade Crossing Protection Fund, which I believe is a federal program. Am I correct?
All right. No, it's fine. If there's no comments or questions, entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yeah.
Trustee Heinz? Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
All right, 6-0. Item E, award of a contract to Superior Excavating for Hartway Drive water main improvements in the amount of $228,796. Director Hoppenstedt?
Thank you again, Mr. President. Bids were received for the Hartway Water Main Replacement Project on May 3rd. We received 10 bids as part of the Hartway Drive Water Main Replacement Project. Superior Excavating coming in 36% below engineer's estimate. The estimated value was about $360,000. We received many competitive bids. Superior just happened to be the lowest at $229,000. Superior Excavating has done some larger scale water main work for the village in recent years, and we remain confident in their knowledge and abilities to perform in this contract. Therefore, I'm recommending the award of the Hartway water main replacement to Superior Excavating in the amount of $228,769. If there are any questions, myself or Engineer Wallers can probably answer those.
With them being so much lower, no concerns that they're potentially missing something?
I'm not terribly concerned because I believe it was 7 of the bidders were much lower than the engineer's estimate. They ranged, obviously, but there was some consistency amongst 7 bidders, and I feel generally pretty confident that they've incorporated everything they need to.
Generally speaking, that's a lot of bidders for a project like this.
Yeah, so I did talk to a few of the underground fellows, and there's definitely, they're definitely out looking for work right now, so that played to our advantage.
Awesome. And is this, we're paying for this with the bonds that we're about to go out for?
Partly. Yes.
Okay.
And they're all interested in working with their public works director, too. That's a benefit there as well.
I would like to think that in their recent years of work with us, they found some efficiencies in working with the village and EEI, and maybe that led to their competitive rate, but I'm not sure that that's always the case.
Good answer.
It could be the perfect hairline, too. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz?
That carries 6-0. Thank you.
Pete, that writing was so small, I had to get a magnifying glass out, but,
Yeah, I understand.
All right, move on to item F, which is a PSA with EEI for the Montgomery Overflow Floodplain Improvements Feasibility Study. Director Hoppenstedt?
Thank you again, Mr. President. For many years, the Montgomery Overflow, which is the area that kind of runs from Jericho Lake, partially underground, partially above ground, under Orchard Road, under Alcott Road, and towards Route 30, has been an area of chronic flooding, poor drainage, and mosquito infestations. While the village has long targeted this area for improvement, funding has always been a challenge. Tonight, there's a professional services agreement before you that would authorize Engineering Enterprises Incorporated to conduct a study and begin to prepare a plan to address the overflow to the extent practical by evaluating ways to reduce the impacts of the floodplain on neighboring residential, commercial, and industrial sites. We're requesting your consideration for the approval of this PSA, and it would utilize funds from TIF number 2. If there are any questions, again, myself or Engineer Wallers can probably speak to those.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? This is a much needed study that needs to go into this to hopefully make a good swath of that land developable in the future, which is one of the goals of the TIF that we were talking about. So,
I have a question. This area is all within TIF number 2?
where the improvements will take place. My understanding is that you can make improvements outside the TIF if they benefit the TIF properties, and that would be the test that we would use to determine whether or not they were feasible or not.
Okay.
And some of that we probably won't know definitely until the study is completed, whether or not said improvements immediately upstream of the TIF would improve or would be beneficial to the TIF.
I think that's right. I mean, part of the challenge here is we have federally protected wetlands that are in the overflow. We have a floodway that's controlled by the state, DNR. So we have two agencies that we have to work through, and then the local floodplain is a village responsibility. So we have those things that we have to keep in mind as we look at alternatives here. The nice thing about this is we can test some of the options that are out there to see which ones might work or might not work before we obviously start to build them. So our goal would be to try to look at things that are cost effective in terms of benefit to the TIF and to the residents that are in the area. We'll go through those, and once we set up our models and are starting to test, then we'll bring back that for discussion so you all can weigh in on what you think is the most important elements to the plan.
All right.
I noticed that there's no dollar amount. Pardon me. There's no dollar amount on this service agreement.
There is one in Section B, compensation.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, I'm not,
section, Exhibit 3, right? $62,876.
that's correct.
Okay.
I neglected to mention that, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve?
It's been a motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Hines? Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
And that carries 6-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to item G, we have Resolution 2017-003, authorizing the supporting.
Yeah, it reads weird.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Supporting the rebate of TIF funds, and this is the TIF rebate resolution that we discussed earlier.
Yes.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Administrator Zolfel for a summary or anything you'd like to add on it.
Thank you, President Brawley. Bart, that first thing I had down on my list today is, we've listed it for separate action tonight, but we're not trying to push you into a decision. Knowing it's a priority for the board, I wanted to list it under separate action. So after the discussion, if you feel you're ready to approve it, I want you to have that ability. If you are not, then we will make whatever changes come from this discussion, and next meeting, we'll have it back on for separate action, and we'll continue to do that. So if and when you're ready to approve it, you'll be able to that evening. So, added language after Trustee Spurling's comment, just making it clear that we don't just look at building permits, we look at the EAV, tax info, any other documents we may feel relevant in trying to make that determination. So to clarify that, Trustee Spurling also asked if we could look for some historical metrics to see if the 3% number was a good number, if it should be higher or lower. I asked Director Van Voren to look into that. Two things in your packet. One is the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law, or PTEL, what we refer to as a tax cap. We have history going back to 93 there of what they use as the allowable increase in your levy each year. You can see it ranges from 0.1% to 4.1%, with an average of 2.28%. Director Van Voren also found the other item you have in there. It's the National Council of Real Estate Investment Fiduciaries, basically a not-for-profit that was formed in 1978 to look at businesses nationwide, advise into different categories, hotel, commercial, industrial, and then breaks each of those categories down by the growth based on income versus the growth based on appreciation, and it breaks it down by the different parts of the country. We included in here the 20-year, again, to try and give you a long time frame. This group also provides a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year in there, and I gave you that information in your packet. For this one, we use the national 20-year and not the Midwest, because the national average for appreciation was 2.68. The Midwest average was 0.38%. And so we went with the other one. Again, as I said at the last meeting, though, to me, you guys need to pick a percentage you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with 1%, 3%, 5%, whatever that number is that you guys are comfortable with. But I did want to bring you that information since you had asked for that. In regards to what Tom commented on earlier, I agree that paragraph at the bottom of page 2, based on the wording up above, should be changed, and I put that at your place this evening. Basically,
Can you go over?
yep. So basically, the paragraph at the bottom of page 2 that starts out, "The village staff shall prepare a report," that second sentence, we would just eliminate that. "The determination of the village staff shall be final." We would just take that whole sentence out. The third sentence then would read, "After preparing said report, the village staff shall, on an annual basis, present said report to the village board for final determination of the rebate amount." I did not remove the part afterwards that says, "unless a board member objects." I agree with Tom that that part is probably not necessary at this point, but without your direction, I didn't want to take out I didn't want to limit your ability to object, even though I agree with Tom that I don't think it's probably necessary,
So just one
with
more
the
time,
intent.
because I went to Ohio State and I'm not as smart as
So
University of Illinois
sentence
people.
2 that says the determination, that just comes out. And sentence 3 starts out the same, but when you get to the to the next page, where it says said report to the village board, then it would say for final determination of the rebate amount. Instead of
So we're saying,
Instead of saying for informational purposes only, it would say for final determination.
unless a board member objects is kind of redundant?
Seems that way because above we're saying you're going to make the final decision.
I agree with that.
So that part would seem redundant. Again, I didn't want to take that out.
I agree
And
with
limit your ability to object without you saying it was okay.
Nope,
Let me offer a counter, though. If it does no harm, if someone's unable to attend the meeting where that's deliberated, we could make it maybe a 14-day window. But I would hate to see somebody left out of that discussion because of travel plans.
That's a good,
It doesn't hurt anything to keep it in there.
yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Okay.
He was
That redundancy is
suggestion to
good.
make it 14 days instead of 30.
Well, I have a question related to that. Justin, when we did this, the first one, when we did do the rebate, I remember there was a mention of a 30-day. And I believe we were all in agreement of just go ahead and do it prior to the 30 days. So that's just something that we were just doing. There's nothing that dictates that we have to do a 30-day?
Correct. And you
Okay.
did waive the 30-day on the first.
Yeah, if nobody objects,
Okay.
we don't wait 30 days. It's just if
Okay.
if a board member would
I
object for some
actually, I
reason.
agree with Trustee Bond for that reason. If somebody isn't at a meeting, that they should have the opportunity if they see something that they don't agree with.
It's an important enough thing that I think all 7 board members should have a say.
I would agree with that.
I think we need to work on the language, though, because of what we're talking about, because the way it reads now, it says you have to wait the 30 days, because if I'm not at the meeting, you have to wait and hear if I have object for 30 days. So maybe we should tighten that window, that I have 7 days to voice my objection. Because otherwise, you have to wait 30 days because you don't
Yeah, you
know if
can't
I
waive
wasn't
that.
here.
Right. And including anybody that was at that meeting that voted, I think would still be entitled to
review it.
To change their mind on further review. So make it a hard 2 week, 14 days. I don't think it hurts anybody.
Okay.
We have to make sure that we're,
So 30 goes to 14?
Yeah.
does that work?
As long as this process is faster than it was last time. In other words, if the taxes are done by November of each year, that this goes out fairly quickly, not,
Well, it'll go to the JRB in December, and then after the JRB, it would come to you.
right.
So depending on when the JRB meeting is in December, we normally cancel the second meeting in December because of the holidays. So it could be, first meeting in January or somewhere in that timeframe, just
That'd be
depending on the
fine.
timing.
Okay.
I have a question related to the sentence, the language above the one in question, on page 1. In the event the vacant parcel within the TIF area develops, the village shall retain all the increment for said parcel. The village doesn't retain it, it goes into the TIF,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
I'd like to clarify that,
all right.
so that it doesn't appear that the village is keeping this money, that it's actually going into the TIF fund. And then under section 2,
Yeah, I agree that language needs to be tweaked in.
In
yeah,
two?
Needs to be tweaked in some manner.
I almost feel like it should become 2 and 3. Like it should become, 2 should be any captured assessment taxable for the new construction. 3 becomes, if it's existing property, it's improved subsequent to January 2014, shall be frozen at the rate of 3% each subsequent year.
Well, see, and
We should add that language into
We
this
kind of cover both of those
up here.
earlier, so I'm not sure if we need
Well, but here, it's kind of like we're doing the step-by-step,
to, so yeah.
regurgitating
break it
back
up
the same
into-
question.
But yes, it definitely needs to be
So I'm
tweaked
thinking-
there, and
Tweak 2,
Yep.
make it 2 and 3, so that the frozen and new construction that's being pulled out are separated. And other than that, and again, I want to speak to Fire Chief Myers' efforts in this regard, because he's been diligent in working towards this resolution with us. And I looked at his township assessor numbers, and I just want to point this out because it shows 4.65% for this 5-year period. I went back and analyzed those numbers. There's also a 2.5% increase in new properties within that number, which we don't have. So the 4.65% is slightly inflated because it includes 2.5% new properties each of those years.
What do you mean by new property?
Well, in his numbers from the assessor, it lists the total dollar amount, which is how he came to his 4.6. Next to that number is the parcel count. So there's new parcels
Yeah,
being added to that number. So the
True.
4.65 is slightly inflated because we have new parcels that are being incorporated into that.
yeah. So that's interesting, because it's not like the township can add land area.
Property,
So I'm wondering if that's from them being divided, or it's the same land. So if there's, I see what you're saying, though, there's 946 in 15, and 14 was 934. So somehow there was an increase of, 12 pins
correct.
through,
So annexation, whatever, but those new pins have to be affecting that value that we're using to come up with the 4.65%. So I think the 3%, I'm not arguing the 3%, I'm pointing out that the 4.65 to me seems slightly inflated because it doesn't contain whatever, I don't know what the factor would be
Yeah.
without knowing what those parcels were.
but I think it, and I'm not trying to argue the point. I think it does, because the township is a land area. You can't add land into the township, correct me if I'm wrong. So potentially parcels developed or were subdivided so that there's new pins, but it's probably the same land area, I would think. If it was the village, I would say we were annexing,
Annexing in.
So, Jared?
If I may, for instance, a few years ago when the Montgomery Business Center subdivision was created, there were a minimum of probably 6 pins created just on that subdivision. So you are correct, the township cannot increase in size. However, there have been subdivisions that would result in a different number of pins.
But again, that would play into what I'm talking about, is those are areas that would be developed now and wouldn't be included in this dollar amount percentage because they would have been pulled.
Right.
They would have been pulled here. In our case, we're pulling them out beforehand. So or
I get you.
freezing it. So I just wanted to make that point, that the 4.65 is probably somewhat inflated, not dramatically, but a couple, I mean, that's why I'm okay with the 3%, because it seems like it's fair.
Okay.
What, the PIN numbers that you gave us for the TIF, okay, a lot of those are not right as far as who owns the building now or who owns the land. Could that be because of the prices have gone up on a lot of those? You have BSN on Orchid Road, and that was sold 1 or 2 years ago for, I don't know, close to $1 million probably, and I don't know what you had, I don't have the figures in front of me now, but Pomps bought that a long time ago, and, but it's still listed as BSN, not Pomps, but the value went up, because Ron Cruz is complaining because he had to put a new roof on to sell it, and his building fees were a little higher than he thought they were, but I think it was close to, I thought he said 40, I don't even remember, 40,000 or something like that. But so that changed. But when are you going to change those? And does that ever change, or that just goes when the TIF started? This is the parcel number, and this is who owned it, or?
I go through the parcel numbers each year. If I missed a couple, I will go back and check them. I do have levy year 14, levy year 15, levy year 16 will be for fiscal year 18. So some of it may just be timing in terms of when the property was sold, but I will go back and check them just to make sure.
Yeah, because there was others too, but that one I was real familiar with because I kind of got the two together and had them sell the building to Pomps.
Okay.
So at this point, I would make the change. Doug talked about change the word village to TIF. If everybody's okay with the language we discussed on changing that paragraph at the bottom of page 2 and top of page 3, we'll make those changes. I'll go back and tweak paragraph 2, possibly move into a paragraph 2 and 3. The last thing I would have then is, for you guys to let me know what you want to do percentage-wise. And then I bring you back a clean copy of the agreement at the next meeting. So, but I think that would be the one outstanding item then.
So Doug advocating for the 3% that's currently in there?
I would echo that.
Okay.
I'll say 4.
Just to be different.
Yep.
Any thoughts on this side?
I would say the 3% because I really wanted to see a similar time frame of what we were looking at to get our average. While I do appreciate the chief giving this to us, this is only for 4 years, 5 years, where the other ones we're looking at 20 years plus. And that's what I wanted to see, something similar to our TIF time period. So I would agree with the 3%.
Okay.
I can agree with Teresa.
I like the reasoning. All right. Does that sound clear?
Believe so. So I will make the change we discussed and bring you back a clean copy.
And when we're done, we're retroing this back.
Correct.
Right? To the beginning of the TIF and squaring up with them.
Yes. And we'll lay that all out for you, what that means once
Once we're all done.
Once we're all done,
Some numbers,
we'll
possibly?
bring it back to you and show you what that'll mean for all the years from year 1
Yeah,
to
because I'm
current.
curious what the number, we've spent a lot of time on this. I'm curious to see what the dollars look like when we're all said and done.
Yeah.
Has everybody got their money yet, or not really? Everybody got their money from
They
a
haven't
couple
done it
years
because
ago?
of this.
Pardon?
They haven't distributed that
We
because of
distributed
this.
year 1. We haven't distributed year 2
One,
because we're
okay.
trying to
Right, okay.
work this out.
I'm working
But
on
one's done, all right.
So, and kind of take it back up to 35,000 feet, just to reiterate, the entire reasoning behind this was to ensure that we're not hurting any of the existing taxing bodies by approving the TIF right in the downturn, but most specifically Montgomery Countryside, who's been a strong advocate for their residents and I think a great partner in this process. So we'll make the changes, or staff will make the changes, and then we'll discuss it under items for separate action at a future meeting.
Our plan will be May 22nd.
Okay. All right. So do we need a motion to table or no? We just table it. Okay. So that's item G. I'll move on to item H, which, if you recall, was G from the consent agenda. So new item H is ordinance 1769, revising the village code with regards to Historic Preservation Commission. Waiver of first and passage on the second reading. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Your concern is having people outside the village?
Two concerns and a comment. First of all, my concern is not at all related to the individuals involved or anyone's interest in serving in that capacity. I am a little concerned that I think that commission is funded sometimes with public money.
Not with our money.
Is it not
No,
village
and-
money?
And there is no public money as far as, well, I think one reason they talked about that is your people all started outside of Montgomery. And you get money from all the people on the bridge and,
Yeah.
you know, the funding. Money comes in and goes out, and actually there's no funding for the historic, and the members don't get anything. We just took these two people because they've worked so hard as volunteers. That one girl worked for 2 years. She lives in Boulder Hill, and probably near Nancy Tranby, who lives in Boulder Hill. So it just got to the point where she did so much work, but she wanted to be on the committee. So it worked out, and same way with Linda Komiak. She worked always on the cemetery walk, and her relatives, the Albrights, are probably involved in all our history, so she knows more about it like Gene Michaels does. So those people were picked for that reason. And I remember on the beautification, Marilyn Michelini just came up with whoever came to the first committee, because you had to. I mean, and if they're out of Montgomery, we didn't care because they were working. I mean, it's just... And I think this is the same type of thing. These people have helped at Montgomery Fest and a lot of other things, so these two people were the ones.
I'd just like to clarify, the HPC does have a line item in the budget.
Yeah.
The majority of that funding comes from, fundraising, different things they do, but there have been times where, we have used village funds for HPC-related purposes, so I just wanted to clarify that.
For
It's
what
not
for?
really without precedent, though, because our...
I want to say, for
revolving-
what for? I'm not, come again?
Matt, thought for the,
What did the historic
If-
get money from the village?
If I may, the history book was one of the things that the village contributed, the lion's share for, the new printing of that. And the village has purchased computers in the past
Right.
for the HPC, so.
Okay, I'm with you on the computer, so we voted on that, and that was because the thing was 10 years old, right? Okay.
So the example that I was going to give was the revolving loan fund committee that we had. Those individuals were not required to be residents. I think they were generally business folks, but not within the village.
and the HPC did this thoughtfully. They made it a limited number that could be from without the village, so Montgomery residents would still make up a majority of it. But it's to try and not limit ourselves. If we have people that have history, you may have longtime residents in Montgomery that moved out. Marilyn Michelini is an example. Longtime trustee and president, now lives in Sugar Grove. So,
Nobody's perfect, Jeff.
I know. So just trying to I think HPC trying to allow themselves to not be limited if they can find somebody that has that knowledge and could be helpful and inject some new blood into the HPC, but without losing, control of it from Montgomery residents but Debbie's our expert. She could speak best to it if you have questions. But that was the intent, at least.
Did you have any other questions?
No, that's my concern, really. I have been hesitant to kick people off the beautification committee. They've been doing a great job for more years than I've served on it. But we have tried to restrict our voting membership. We have two types of membership, non-voting and voting. And I much prefer that Montgomery tax dollars be overseen by Montgomery people. And that was my concern about watching that go the possibly in the wrong direction. But if, it's up to the board, I just wanted to air it out a bit.
I forgot about that $2,000 computer, but other than that, I don't know any other money that really they came, and I know the beautification has a budget.
Yes.
And historic is never, really, we raise our own money, and as far as I know, there's not a lot.
No, generally, you raise money for, I just wanted to point out that there have been a couple instances, just to clarify, but generally, you guys do the fundraising to raise your, whatever funds you need, or you've gotten grants, or whatever the case may be.
All right,
If there are no other objections, I'll move to approve.
thank you.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
All right, and that carries 6-0. Thank you. Moving on to item I is the appointment of Paula Michaelik, 22 Chatham Place, to the Historic Preservation Commission for a term through May 31st of 2021. If there's any discussion, otherwise I'll entertain. a
Motion to approve?
Second.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Thank you. And move on to item J, the appointment of Linda Komiak, 1861 Garfield in Aurora, to HBC for a term through May 31st of 2021.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Wait, 1 second. On the information here for the ordinance, it's saying one of them is appointed through 2019 and the other through 2021. We have both through 2021 here.
That's correct. The Linda Komiak is through 2019, I believe. So that's a typo on the agenda, but the agenda item is correct.
Okay, so the one we're voting on now is 2019.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect. We don't have to vote on the other one again. All right. Any other discussion? There's been a motion and a second, correct? Call the roll.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Hines. And Trustee Youngerman.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on, items for discussion. Nothing? No, newer unfinished business? Sorry, I was ahead of myself. Anybody have anything to add?
I
I'm
have
sure I
one
should have
item
something.
for new, but
Go ahead. No, I have nothing.
on Saturday, May 20th, at 9 o'clock, with the assistance of our Public Works Department, we'll be planting the flowers on the Mill Street Bridge, and we can use volunteers, especially those with green thumbs, or at least garden gloves. And we'll also be, courtesy of the Rotary and the Montgomery VFW, doing some flower bed plantings to help beautify that property as well. So everyone's welcome. You really don't have to have a green thumb. All the materials are supplied, and it will help make downtown much more attractive.
Perfect.
The 20th of
May
May.
20th, yep.
It's a Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock.
And our project starts at 10, but we've teamed up. The two organizations have teamed up to work together that day to get both projects done.
Perfect.
I'm working on the flats, just so
Thank
you
you.
guys are aware.
Thank you.
And donuts and coffee have kind of gotten to be a tradition, too.
Sounds good. Anything else? Future meetings, beautification committee is canceled due to the planning day we just discussed. Committee of the whole has been canceled. Our next village board and intergovernmental will be May 22nd, starting at 6 p.m. No executive session this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Hines. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes?
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.
You're here.